random people.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I think that's recording. Does it come up as recording on yours?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I'll start. So if you don't mind, obviously I probably already know, but could you just explain a little bit about your background and like where you came from before Zoops?
Yeah, cool. So I am Reece Morgan. I'm the head of operations at Zoops. Prior to being made head of operations, I started and founded the handbag and accessories department within Zoops. Before that, I worked as a fashion photographer and stylist, working for brands like Vogue, British Vogue, American Vogue, Russian Vogue, Elle, Reece, All Saints, and ASOS, just doing editorial styling. But then I started as a photographer at Zoops and then built my way up to where I am now.
Cool, fab, thank you. And then what are like your initial opinions on pre-loved fashion? Do you feel like the same way that you do about handbags with fashion?
Yeah, I completely feel the same way, and I think it's really important in terms of sustainability to promote pre-loved fashion in the same way, if not more important. I'm quite conscious of my footprint when it comes to fashion. I don't really buy much into fast fashion where I can. Obviously, it's sometimes unavoidable. But I am true in the same way as I am handbags in investing in pieces that last a long time. So buying less, but buying better.
Cool. And do you have any concerns about like hygiene? I know some people I spoke to have said like they're not really sure about the idea of kind of sharing clothes. Obviously, like with my plan, you'd like dry clean in between each rent, or like when you buy the clothes, obviously we'd clean them and tailor them. But would you have any like personal concerns about hygiene?
Like you said, as long as everything was dry cleaned and obviously with current climate we're in, cleaned thoroughly, I wouldn't have an issue with it. Especially if quality was at the forefront and if there was,
Yeah,
I wouldn't wear something with like loads of wear on it personally,
yeah,
but hygiene doesn't concern me.
yeah, cool. And then how do you feel about renting fashion? Do you think that's something that will like become more popular, or is it kind of not something you'd consider?
I definitely would be interested in renting fashion for key events. I don't know if I would rent fashion on a month by month because I know some people do that when it's like a coat or a bag or something like that.
Yeah.
Would definitely look into renting for occasions. One thing that I found interesting the other day, I saw an article about clothing rental, and it's maybe something you might want to include in your dissertation, but everyone's saying that it's a really sustainable way to live. But
Yeah,
there was questions of whether it caused more damage to the environment because of the amount of postage back and forth.
yeah,
So
yeah, I
maybe
see.
if the place was a drop-in shop, it's more better for the
Yeah.
environment. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point. I've kind of researched into that, and also the idea of like doing regular dry cleaning is not very good for the environment as well. So you can't really sort of market it that it's really sustainable and then like have it transported everywhere and do loads of dry cleaning. It kind of like is a bit defeats the object of being sustainable. And then what age group do you think would be most interested in this concept of like pre-loved and rental luxury fashion?
I think obviously like vintage clothing's always been like a thing. And I think when I started the handbag department sort of 7 years ago, it was a really unheard of kind of concept. People didn't really like the thought of buying pre-owned. And I did find that my market initially was sort of between the 50 to 60 age range.
Mhm.
But as time's gone on, I've definitely seen like more and more millennials or Gen Z
Yeah,
clients, like people that are your age up to my age, um, becoming more and more my bigger percentage of my clientele. So I think definitely suits the Zoop client range, which I think is I'll get it properly for you, but I think it's 25 to 36, I think, which is Zoop's handbags.
oh, cool. That's good to know. Yeah, I've kind of done all of my marketing based on like data from millennials and Gen Z. So that was kind of the target group that I was going for.
I think it's definitely come down. I think before it was definitely an older clientele, but now, and I think with naturally with sites like Depop, like
Yeah,
Best Collective and things, it's much more targeted to more community based. So people that use social media, people that are of a
yeah,
younger age range. But yeah,
cool. Thank you. And then this is kind of a question that I asked Sophia, but you'd probably be able to answer as well. What do you think are the best ways to target sort of millennials and Generation Z? She sort of mentioned like social media, and she also mentioned some campaigns that she tried that didn't work so well. Like she was talking about, you'd probably know, but like a race day that you did, that wasn't so successful.
Yeah, so I think the us, well, I mean, I work quite closely with Sophia on that
Mm.
kind of thing, and I think, but us, what we found is that if you're trying to target that younger audience, they don't really want to see like fluff. So they don't want to see like a highly edited, orchestrated concept video. They actually just want to see a video that showcases the product really, really well. And this is the bare bones of actually what you're trying to sell. It's pre-owned, it's sustainable, it's a really good investment, and you're getting a really good price off the retail. They're quite savvy shoppers, so having it in black and white in front of them. And to be honest, like people look at, I will follow up with the facts after, but people look at an Instagram post for like less than 2 seconds. So like,
Yeah.
it's like you have to really capture someone's eye, whether it's a price point that's and me and Sophia always make a point of like when we're posting something or doing our stock drops, we're like, what is the catch point? So is it that it's a really big amount off of the retail price, or is it the condition? Is it the fact that it's an investment piece, or
Yeah,
that thing? And I think that's what captures people in the best.
cool. That's really helpful. Thank you. Um, and then you have kind of already touched on this, but who would you say that Zoops's biggest competitors would be sort of in the clothing market?
Yeah, so I think biggest competitors are the interesting thing about the pre-love market is that your competitors are sometimes your working relationships. So people
Yeah.
like eBay, Vestiaire Collective, and Depop, I would say in terms of the clothing aspect, but obviously they are marketplaces. Outside of that, take a look at like Luxury Promise. Um, who else can I think of from a clothing perspective? Luxury post. One good one to look at is Label Love. They do sort of curated pieces that you're talking about, like Chanel suits and things like that,
Mhm.
and maybe Rewind Vintage. But other than that, there's not really anyone else in the UK.
Cool. And then I guess for like the rental market, it's probably a different type of competitor because I think there's people like there's that brand Her that's just collaborated with Selfridges.
Mm.
But I guess like our competitors would kind of split into pre-loved and rental because there's not many people that do both, like offer the option of outright purchase and renting.
Yeah, exactly. And there's someone. It's My Wardrobe. Is that rental? But I don't think
Yeah,
it's.
Wardrobe HQ's rental. I think they actually do offer outright purchase as well, so they're probably like a bigger competitor.
They've got a pop up in Harrods. It is quite a good place to be. I think quite interesting.
Cool, thank you. And then how do you think that the pandemic has affected the luxury market in general?
Um, from my personal aspect and from people that I speak to in the industry, I think it's actually made it boom a little. I think
Yeah.
people are more conscious of what they're spending, obviously given the economic climate as well as the sort of general climate. But I think people are more conscious of what they're spending. It actually goes back to what I said about buying less but buying better.
Mhm.
I've certainly seen my clients shift into more investment pieces. They're not looking for like really flashy pieces anymore. It's more timeless and classic. Um, and these consumers like really are treating these people, I don't call them consumables, they're like assets. They're like treating these assets as like stock and like
Yeah.
seeing what they
Yeah.
can make money on after the pandemic. If it's a rainy day and they get put on furlough or they lose their job, like what can they sell straight away?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good point. I've done like a lot of research into kind of like the super rich, and everything just proves that the rich have almost got richer during the pandemic. So,
I think there was one, I read something yesterday, and there was one person worth 100 billion pre-pandemic, and now there's like eight
oh my goodness.
pandemic.
You know, I've
Yeah,
seen the number of billionaires has gone up by a lot during the pandemic, which is crazy. It's probably like one of the only markets that's actually boomed during the pandemic.
yeah.
Um, and then what do you think are the current problems in the fashion industry? Like some of the other people have said things like fast fashion, and also the problems like when you think that you're donating your clothes, so you like donate them to charity or you put them in like a clothing bank or something, and where they kind of end up is not where you'd think they would end up. But like, what's your opinion on problems in the industry?
I definitely think more and more people need to buy pre-owned from, sorry if my washing machine gets too loud, just
Yes, okay.
um, it's for pre-owned, and I think more and more for not only for a sustainability aspect, but an ethical aspect. We're not too sure where all of these clothes and stuff that you buy in Zara is being made and who's being made by. Um, and also like resource, like we're like I've done a lot of work on this last year, and we're sort of running out of resource, like things like cotton and things. We won't have that in 50 years. It's gonna, like, we're running out basically. But yeah, like you said, like people taking things to the charity shop doesn't actually, it actually does worse for the environment than it does better. So that again, I'll say it for the third time, but buying less and buying better, whether it's pre-owned or brand new, all feeds into that. You don't need to buy hundreds of the same thing.
Yeah, no, definitely buy less, buy better. Um, and then I've also been trying to do like a little bit of research of where we could actually like source the clothes from. I think a lot of the places would be similar to sort of handbags, so like auctions, wholesalers, even like eBay. And I'm also going to do like some comparative shopping. So I'm going to go up to London at the weekend and see like what I can find in charity shops and stuff to see if it's like a potential source for a lot of our clothing. Have you got any like ideas of where you could actually source the clothing from?
Yeah, I think like you missed one really big one, which is the general public. I think
Yeah,
obviously
yeah,
that's where the clothes are. They're in people's closets. So doing a marketing campaign on, um, I'm just trying to word it, like doing a marketing campaign. It's like what's in your closet. Like people have
yeah,
an abundance of clothes and things that you could resell. But other than that, like you said, auctions, competitors. Obviously, you have to think about end of line stock. So
yeah.
bigger brands that have done their final sale, what happens to those clothes after? Like what happens to it if it doesn't sell at TK Maxx? Like there's
Yeah,
there's ways of sourcing at the end of the line as well.
yeah, I saw this horrible thing about what Burberry do with all their dead stock, and there was like this article they literally just burnt it all in a massive fire.
I don't think they do that anymore. I think last year they got really, really badly attacked for it because of like sustainability and
It's
also
awful.
burning it, which is also really bad for the environment. So
Yeah, yeah, it's awful. And again, I'm not sure if this is like a question that you'll know the answer to necessarily, but when thinking about renting, like I was thinking about the different things that would potentially go wrong. And one thing is like insurance, like how would our insurance cover us when people are basically having our stock which still belongs to us? Like would we be insured if something happened to the clothing or if it got damaged? I'm not sure because it's not really something we've done before at Zoops, but would you know?
I mean, there's definitely like renters insurance or like loaning insurance. That's it's like if you borrow a car, it's no different to that. I think it would obviously depend on the value. So whether that would reflect in your prices, if you're like if you was to rent a Louis Vuitton bag compared to like a Birkin, I would assume that the price is a lot different.
Yeah,
But also, like I looked at the rental model like a few years ago, and like the thing you have to remember is like light wear and tear here and there is not really going to affect your business if you can
yeah,
the restoration process intact. And also, like each time you rent the bag, it pays part of the bag back. So by the end, you you sort of own that bag in full. So
yeah.
whether you clear it for stock afterwards, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah, because I've been kind of exploring the way that like you can almost make money on stock that's just sitting there because say you sell something and it's like £1,000 and you get 10 rents from it, then you've basically made the full price. And then if you then go and sell it outright, then you've made like double the money that you would if it was just sat there waiting for an outright purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So and then just thinking about like the kind of brands that we would stock. Obviously I mentioned things like the Burberry trench coat, Chanel tweed suits. But would you kind of think that something like an essential tracksuit or something that's a little bit like lower in price, that price point, do you think something like that would work, or should it all kind of be like cohesive with the other departments, like complete high-end brands, if that makes sense?
It's really weird that you said that because I was thinking about an essential tracksuit when you that. But I'm not too sure, like, because it's technically sportswear, but not. For me, I think I would keep it more luxury
Hmm.
and in line with the other brands.
Yeah,
And there's nothing to say that you couldn't do like ready to wear and then have like couture and then have
yeah, yeah,
like runway pieces, because I think it like rental for me in my head, I'm a lot older than you, but I remember it like my mum actually used to own a dress rental shop like years ago,
oh really, oh that's cool.
and she would rent out like ball gowns for like prom or like events and things, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like a dated way of, in my head that's really dated now because now you're talking about like Balmain blazers and things like that.
yeah.
I think it's still key to have that like evening wear section too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I read this article that said like the reasons that people rent, and number one is like formal events when people know they're just going to wear it one time. But then it goes like through all these reasons, and one of them is just like for the super rich just to save wardrobe space because they just have so much stuff that actually they only wear like 20% of the time.
Yeah. And also,
But
it's really expensive. Like if you to like
yeah,
buy,
yeah,
dress, it can go to like £20,000. So it's like people don't want to fork that out.
exactly. If you know you're only going to wear it like a handful of times.
Mhm.
Have you got any other brands that you would recommend to sort of like look into?
Obviously, if you used to look at couture, that's pretty much a given. But for me, it would be it's sort of from like a ready-to-wear perspective. Like you said, Chanel, um, Fendi's a really good one. I think I'm just thinking more of like a from a social media perspective, like what was, because for me, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but if I was to rent something from like a super brand, I would want it to like shout the brand, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Fendi, Chanel, like Givenchy. I don't know. Yeah, those kind of super brands. I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's kind
Mm.
of what I had in mind as well.
I don't think I would rent like a plain black jumper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has to be something special, I think. Um, and then kind of my last question was just like, do you have any other recommendations? Anything else you think I'm kind of missing out and should include?
No, I think you've done pretty well and covered everything. But I'll send over those actual figures after, and if I think of anything, I'll email you.
Oh, thank you so much, Reece. That was really helpful.
Right. I think Deborah's joined. Deborah, did you want to do yours now?
Well, yeah, so had a bit of a nightmare. I had a a meeting pop into my diary at 11:30 for 12 o'clock for evaluation of the wheat barn, and I was like, I'm not there. Apparently, someone had started come down in the car with a suitcase full of stuff. So I just rushed up here, and then I just looked at my laptop and this came up. So I'm so sorry, I forgot we were doing this at 12 o'clock. So shall we do it another time? Because I've got these guys waiting in the wonder room now.
Yeah, of course, that's fine. Yeah, I've gone through all the questions of Reece, so we'll just sort another time, Deborah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Okay,
It's been a bit of one of those days.
no.
When you're like, it comes in my diary, I'm not there. Oh, it's Charlotte. No, Charlotte's not working today.
We said the sales meeting as well.
Yeah. Oh, good fun.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Catch up later then.
See you later.
See you
Bye.
later. Thanks, Reece.
No worries, and I'll follow up later on.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.